The first week of September marked a rapid change in the season, with the arrival of heavy downpours by day and nights rent by thunderstorms. This came after a long, dry summer in Britain, during which the green expanses of London's royal parks were bleached and desiccated. The pavement of Constitution Hill, the road that connects Hyde Park Corner and Buckingham Palace, was covered in soggy leaf debris the morning after the Queen passed away, and had been trampled to a rusty mush by the crowds that had gathered to place floral tributes at the wrought iron gates with the Union Jack flying at half-staff. Autumn was just beginning to smell. There was a noticeable change in pressure and a sense that something had finally broken open after a long season of waiting. It was obvious what was going to happen all during the previous afternoon as soon as a BBC News presenter said shortly after lunch that the Queen's caretakers at Balmoral Castle, her vacation house in Scotland, were worried about her health. With television cameras trained on the foggy Aberdeen airport runway, it was rumored that members of the royal family would soon arrive at her bedside, taking to the airways wearing a dark suit and a black tie, a look that a responsible newsman doesn't adopt lightly. Hugh Edwards, the host of the BBC's flagship news show. The shock was not so much in the eagerly awaited bulletin that the Queen had passed away peacefully that afternoon, but rather in the phrase "the King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening, and will return to London tomorrow," which came just after 6:30 in Edward's Sama relay of the Buckingham Palace statement. The country transitioned smoothly from one reign to the next. On Thursday night, a constant stream of people moved almost silently through the gates of the palace while sheltering from torrential downpours behind dark umbrellas. By Friday morning, the sky was clearer and there were more people watching in central London. Constitution Hill's line moved swiftly, the household cavalry's gliding black horses and mounted troops passed by spectators. They had their military comrades, members of the King's Guard, which had previously been known as the Queen's Guard until Thursday, stationed outside the palace. The nation's nomenclature changed overnight. His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, or HMRC, is currently receiving tax payments from Britons. The Prime Minister of His Majesty's government at Westminster is Liz Truss, who was chosen by the Queen just 2 days before she passed away. There was a somber yet calm atmosphere outside the palace. Even though the Queen's passing was sad, it wasn't unexpected or tragic. When the cricket match in London was postponed, Nottingham resident Kathleen Murray decided to visit the palace instead. She was standing in line with a single red rose in her hand. "I don't consider myself a big royalist, but when I heard the news yesterday, I was actually rather unhappy," she added. She added that although her loyal mother, who is 87 years old, will grasp that the Queen had passed away, Murray was unsure of how long she would remember it. Murray's mother had dementia. When she was 17, she came to attend the coronation and spent the night on the street in the pouring rain, according to Murray. The Queen turned to face the opposite direction as the Queen's carriage passed. "Even if the Queen wasn't at fault, my mother was disappointed. An incident that occurred on the Mall some 70 years ago has evolved into a tale that is passed down like an inheritance, or a crown. There are no words powerful enough to express how loved you were, according to some of the flowers. You were constant throughout our entire lives. You were a model representative of British principles and an unrivaled beacon of duty, faith, steadfastness, humility, and humanity." Parents were ferrying kids past the palace who would subsequently be too young to recall the day the Queen died or the day after the Queen died. A policeman stood tolerantly by the gates, photographing sleeping infants while they were temporarily parked there. One preschooler, seated on the rim of his sleeping sibling's pram, inquired, "Where's the tiger?" His bewildered carer inquired, "What tiger, my love?" "The tiger of the Queen," he said. "The King now owns the animal, wherever it may be." An actuary from Philadelphia named John Miller was lingering at the barriers in front of the palace when he was in London. In accordance with Miller, he had intended to spend the day at the palace viewing the changing of the guard. Instead, he had observed the guests as they took in the broader change underway. The sight of hundreds of bouquets lined up and so many people purchasing flowers for the Queen is undoubtedly interesting, he remarked. Miller clarified, though, that he hadn't noticed any crying. One of the striking exceptions was a woman in tears on her knees being frantically licked on the face by a small puppy with a Union Jack bandana around its neck. This day was marked by restrained anguish and a sense of the unavoidable. The world's news media were camped out along a walkway near the entrance to Green Park, stationed beneath weatherproof gazebos. Red geraniums, purple salvia, and variegated bushes had been planted in flower beds between the tents and the palace. They were flowering as if the summer's drought had never occurred. A little border between the lawn and the railing was being weeded by a group of Royal Park's gardeners. One tattooed, tan gardener said that although he would prefer to seed it with wildflowers, there would not be enough time before the funeral to do so. Another gardener took a break from his work to comment that it felt nice to be contributing to society, in honor of the Queen's passing, and that he felt like he was making history. He said, pointing to the patch of recently uncovered earth underneath him. "It's life, isn't it?" he said. In the muted, damp air, the garden was immaculate, at least until the next rain. The lawn had been cleared of dead leaves, a mound of which had been dumped in a garden waste bag labeled Tudor Environmental.